Hello, my name's Benjamin Isaiah Flores, and I'm here talking about the Service Learning Project. I went both times. I went to help with the sports center, and I did 5 hours each. The first time I went around and I cleaned up a bunch of trash that was around, and then the second time came early in the morning, and I basically kept charge of the scoreboard. You can see in that little corner right there. And overall, this was probably one of a much more when I got here, I didn't think this was going to be a significant experience. But in the end, this became much more relevant to my life in a long-term sense. So let's go ahead and get started. If there, don't worry. Anyways, a quick background of some things I learned about the history of Mercy Street. Back in 2003, Trey Hill and his family, as you can see, moved in to the west side of Dallas, which quote unquote small pockets of poverty. And they moved there specifically so they could essentially, I mean, let's be real, you can't really claim to help people if you're not with and among those people. Hence the quote, transformation best occurs in the context of relationships. And that's kind of where he began Mercy Street from. And from there, it started originally with the mentoring program, but then it moved to the sports program, and then finally with where we are now with both the previous and the leadership program. We also, beginning off, we have my first principle, which is theory X and theory Y. And the general synopsis with both of them is theory X is essentially that given the opportunities, employees will not go above and beyond. They'll, in fact, be begrudging, they'll be belligerent, and they'll more or less just ignore you. While Theory Y states that given the opportunity, they'll go above and beyond, they'll work harder to work better, faster, stronger, the whole gist. And Mercy Street demonstrates this by going all in on Theory Y because it gives these kids everything they need to succeed in life. It gives them, it can, I guess, with the sporting, it creates networking, quote unquote. But that's with friendships and kids at our age. Everyone knows how important friendships is. That with mentoring, it's get pouring more resources into them to grow more maturely and so on. Leadership as well. Moving on. My second principle is equity theory, which is the thought process that people tend to want to get. They want to put in whatever effort they put in, they want to get out an equal amount. And now I don't know about you, I prefer to get a little more than what I'm putting in, but that's just me. And this is less about the kids. I wrote about the kids, but this is much more about the parents. They're putting their trust into Mercy Street, and in exchange, those kids they're getting able to engage in actual PE and extracurricular and academic division, which is huge, especially when you're in a position where you don't get the opportunity to always have your eyes on your kid. And that I can imagine how rough that is coming from an environment where dinner was not often a guarantee. Continuing onward to my first of two big paragraphs I wrote here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this one is pretty it's beefy. It's a beefy little paragraph, but the main gist is that humans innately have needs that must be met. And once one has been achieved, we kind of ascend upward to the next need. And once we've reached that and the new need, we tend to not need the one below as badly. I mean, it is still important, but it's more of what we crave. And more or less, Mercy Street provides the perfect environment to allow such growth. Not to say that needing one of the needs is less than the other, But the fact that we can be presented with a healthy situation that these kids can grow in and to develop is fundamentally a gift all the way through. Finally, my big paragraph here, I'll make it quick for you, I swear, Professor. I know you're in a time crunch. I've worked with kids for the past 4 years of my life, especially in the middle school to high school range, and overall, I could tell the Lord was pushing me away from ministry in that regard, and especially with just how aggressive and just mean these kids are getting. And to see how these kids were acting was a fundamental it was a bit of a mind blow. It because I sat near some kids while I was helping out, and I heard them talking about just rain rod and memes, but they also started talking about the awareness of it, like, "Yeah, it's just a fad," and, like, and that's summarizing, and my summarizing's not doing justice of how much they were thinking about it and genuinely talking, and it was a surprise. I was at first taken aback by how not mature, but more of how aware they were of the trends moving around them. And it only progressed further when I did realize they were also mature. They were they did not fully understand their predicaments in life. They fully understand that their situation, that it wasn't the best, but what they had was a gift that could not be tarnished. So they were taking it seriously and giving it the treatment it deserved, and that brought me comfort, a lot of comfort, especially regarding what I want to do in the future. Because in the end, what I will do, because I've mentioned I want to be an illustrator and a writer. Inevitably, children, young adults, teens, all of that will read my stuff, and I'm comforted that the audience, there is still an audience out there that will still respect and appreciate what I will be distributing and giving out. It's a weird thing to think about in the day and age where it feels so hopeless. But it's nice to know that the children of the future are in good hands, thanks to just the world, but I guess more importantly, thanks to Mercy Street. All right, that's it for me, Professor. I'm really thankful you gave me an opportunity to talk about this. You have a good night, all right?